The world of animation, and arguably television as a whole, suffered a tragic loss on November 26, 2018, as that would be the day that Stephen Hillenburg would pass away due to ALS at the age of 57. Stephen Hillenburg was best known as the creator of the long-running Nickelodeon animated series SpongeBob SquarePants, a show that has been on the air since 1999 and has shown no signs of slowing down. It is one of the longest running and most successful cartoons ever made, and despite the many ups and downs the series would go through, its legacy would still remain largely unharmed. Over 25 years later, and SpongeBob's legacy, SpongeBob's impact on pop culture is still felt to this very day. And so, when the news broke out that the man who started all of this passed away, everyone, including myself, was in shock about this. I remember where I was when I found out Stephen Hillenburg passed away. It was near the end of school, and I was having a mostly crappy day at school for reasons completely unrelated to Stephen's death, as I hadn't known about it at the time. Near the end of the last class of the day, a student broke out the news that SpongeBob creator Stephen Hillenburg had passed away, and I just didn't know how to respond to this news. I remember on the drive home, I just sat there quietly. I didn't talk to my mom or anything like that. I just sat there, just quietly looking outside. I remember it was a very dull, gray, cloudy day, which was honestly very fitting given the news. Stephen Hillenburg was gone. This man who made so many people's childhoods great was gone. This man who made a show that will be cherished for future generations to come until the end of humanity is gone. That's it. He is no longer in this world. Over 6 years later, and I still have a very hard time believing that this man is gone. And in retrospect, when you look at the kind of people that have worked at Nickelodeon that are unfortunately still with us to this very day, all that does is make Stephen Hillenburg's death even more tragic and unfair than it already is. Would it be hyperbole for me to say that Stephen Hillenburg is one of the most important people in animation history? Because I feel like he deserves to be part of that title. He deserves to hold that title. I have zero shame in putting Stephen Hillenburg alongside the likes of Walt Disney or Hayao Miyazaki, even if his contributions to animation were a lot more minimal in comparison. Do not underestimate how important the older seasons of SpongeBob were to a lot of people. Do not underestimate how influential they were. I am in the minority when I say that I don't think SpongeBob became bad immediately after the first movie in 2004, but one thing that I will not deny is that the first 3 seasons of the show were easily when it was at its most influential. There are probably tons of people out there that picked up a pencil and started drawing because of SpongeBob, because of Stephen Hillenburg. In addition to SpongeBob, Stephen Hillenburg had a lifelong passion for marine life, which was partially why he created the show. And I want to imagine that because of SpongeBob, because of Stephen Hillenburg, people took an interest in marine life. People wanted to learn more about sea sponges and starfish and crabs and plankton, etc. And it's all thanks to this one man and his sponge. In 2001, an episode of SpongeBob would air for the first time called Band Geeks. The episode follows Squidward Tentacles, who learns that his lifelong rival Squilliam Fancyson, who also makes his serious debut in this episode, will be attending the Bubble Bowl, which is obviously a parody of the Super Bowl. Realizing that this is his chance to one-up Squilliam for once in his life, Squidward gathers the citizens citizens of Bikini Bottom together to form a band, and they subsequently spend the next few days rehearsing. Unfortunately, all of the rehearsals end up going disastrously, with no one getting along together. The night before the Bubble Bowl, Squidward shows up heartbroken, telling them that because of their behavior, they have ruined Squidward's one chance of payback against Squilliam. The citizens of Bikini Bottom very quickly realize their mistake, and so they spend the entire night rehearsing. The next day, the Bubble Bowl is held. As Squidward prepares to face the biggest embarrassment of his life, and Squilliam prepares to enjoy every last second of it, they're both surprised by the absolutely fantastic performance from Squidward's band, as they perform Sweet Victory, which is, I believe, this royalty-free 80s rock song. I'm not sure if it's like a genuine 80s hard rock song, or if it's like a throwback song where it came out in like the 90s or something, but it's made to sound like an 80s hard rock song, but I don't think that really matters. For the first time seemingly ever, Squilliam is left embarrassed and Squidward is left satisfied. The episode comes to an end. Band Geeks is widely regarded by many SpongeBob fans as being one of the best, if not the best episode of the entire series. The obvious highlight is the powerful, iconic, and satisfying performance of Sweet Victory at the end of the episode, but the episode also contains many of the show's most iconic jokes, namely Big Meaty Claws and Is Mayonnaise an Instrument? Many people use this episode to showcase how good SpongeBob was during its early days, and so, with Stephen Hillenburg's passing and the critical acclaim that this episode has gotten ever since it premiered, one person had an idea to honor Stephen Hillenburg in the greatest way possible. Sometime in December of 2018, a petition would be made on change.org. Have Sweet Victory performed at the Super Bowl. The description reads as follows. As some of you may or may not know, Stephen Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, has passed away recently. As a tribute to his legacy, his contributions to a generation of children, and to truly showcase the greatness of this song, we call for Sweet Victory to be performed at the halftime show. Now for context, Super Bowl 53, the then upcoming Super Bowl, was to be held on February 3rd, 2019, with the halftime show performers consisting of pop band Maroon 5 and rappers Travis Scott and Big Boy. After this petition was released, it immediately went viral, garnering 1 million signatures. People wanted to see life imitate art. People wanted to see Sweet Victory performed at the halftime show. Not only would it be amazing to see this song be performed at the actual Super Bowl, but it would also serve as the ultimate tribute to one of the most important men in animation history. A man who had contributed so much to so many people's childhoods, and there would quite simply be no better way to pay respect to this man than by recreating what is arguably the most iconic moment of his show in real life. People wanted to see this happen. And so, in the months leading up to the Super Bowl, more and more things would come out that led to people further speculating that their wish may have come true. Our first clue was on December 12, 2018, when the official Twitter account for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which was where Super Bowl 53 was to be held, posted a GIF of SpongeBob's iconic dance from Band Geeks. The tweet immediately became viral, garnering 30,000 retweets and 78,000 likes. Many people saw this tweet as a sign that yes indeed, we were going to get Sweet Victory at this halftime show. We were going to honor Stephen Hillenburg's legacy in the best way possible. The petition ended up being a success. As we said goodbye to 2018 and we said hello to 2019, we got seemingly more definitive confirmation that yeah, we're getting Sweet Victory at this halftime show. On January 13th, 2019, Maroon 5 posted a video onto their Twitter account, a teaser video for their performance at the halftime show. The 55-second long video mostly consists of concert footage of the band spliced up together, as well as clips of Travis Scott and Big Boy spliced in as well, obviously highlighting that they would be part of the halftime show performance as well. For a few seconds in the video, footage of SpongeBob could be seen, which has been slowed down for your convenience, and all this did was make people even more excited for the Super Bowl. I want to imagine there were probably people that didn't care about the Super Bowl or just like football in general. There were probably people that didn't care about sports at all that would tune in to this Super Bowl just for the halftime show, just to see Stephen Hillenburg get the perfect tribute. And then the big day arrived, February 3rd, 2019. The 53rd Super Bowl was about to be held. I know literally nothing about sports, so I'm not gonna bore you with the details about the game itself, and instead, we're just gonna cut straight to what this video is all about. The halftime show. So here you are. You have presumably tons of people, both fans of football and people that don't care about football. You have all of these people watching this halftime show, ready to see this man get the tribute that he deserves. The halftime show starts with Maroon 5 performing some of their songs, and then it cuts to this.
And now, a true musical genius who needs no introduction. It's lit!
We cut to the trumpets that opened up Sweet Victory in the original Band Geeks episode, and instead of seeing Plankton play that iconic opening piano melody, we cut to a cartoon asteroid heading towards the stadium, and once the asteroid hits the stadium, out comes Travis Scott performing Sicko Mode. The rest of the halftime show consists of Maroon 5, Travis Scott, and Big Boy performing all of their respective songs, and then it ends. You're waiting for them to play Sweet Victory. You're waiting for them to follow up that SpongeBob clip at the beginning, but it never happens. There is no follow-up. The halftime show concludes and the game resumes. There was no Sweet Victory performance at all. This 10-second clip is all you get. Naturally, the internet was not happy about this at all. There was a massive backlash, and I mean a massive backlash against Maroon 5, Travis Scott, not so much Big Boy. Most of the ire was towards Maroon 5 and Travis Scott, not really Big Boy all that much. I don't know why he got spared, but whatever, that's beside the point. There was backlash towards the NFL for seemingly lying to us. Knowing how the internet is, memes would immediately be made about the Super Bowl not having Sweet Victory at all in any capacity. People criticizing the fact that what should have been a loving tribute to Stephen Hillenburg was instead just used as an introduction for Travis Scott. Something that I think is worth bringing up is this happened shortly after the similarly critically panned YouTube Rewind 2018, which only a few days after it was released managed to become the most disliked video of all time on YouTube. And with the backlash towards YouTube Rewind 2018 still fresh in people's minds, people were ready for round 2. As of making this video, the 2019 halftime show has 22 million views, with only 231,000 likes and over 1 million dislikes. Obviously, many of the comments on the video focus on the fact that Sweet Victory wasn't performed at this halftime show. If you go onto Wikipedia's list of most disliked YouTube videos, and you look through old old edits of the list from around early 2019, you will see that this halftime show was up there as among the most disliked videos on YouTube. Obviously, it's not there anymore, and considering the fact that for whatever reason, the amount of videos included on the list changes, sometimes it's the top 30 videos, sometimes it's the top 50 videos. I believe currently right now it's the top 42 videos. Why is it 42 and not 40? I don't know. But regardless, given how much time has passed since this controversy happened, and given the fact that seemingly everyone has moved on and forgotten about it, I think it's safe to say that this video is nowhere near the most disliked videos on YouTube. The attempt to have a YouTube Rewind 2018 Part 2 happen with this video seemingly failed. Now, it's been 6 years since this controversy, and I have to ask myself, was the backlash justified? I want to say yes, but also no. I must remind you that the headliners for the 2019 halftime show were Maroon 5, Travis Scott, and Big Boy. A lot of the comments on the YouTube upload of the halftime show, a lot of memes that people would make about the halftime show would criticize the fact that obviously there was no Sweet Victory to be found at the halftime show. But the thing is, there are two very different ways they could have implemented Sweet Victory into this halftime show. One way actually would have been respectful to Stephen Hillenburg's legacy, and the other way would have been unintentionally disrespectful and unintentionally funny as well at the same time. On the one hand, they could have very easily just played the original unedited Sweet Victory clip from Band Geeks, maybe have it at the end of the show, have Maroon 5 and Big Boy and Travis Scott and whatever perform all of their songs, and then as the grand finale, have it end with the original clip from Band Geeks. And then after the clip ends, it cuts to a dedicated to Stephen Hillenburg screen. Thank you, Stephen Hillenburg, in memoriam, stuff like that, something along those lines. And that would have been the respectful way to honor Stephen Hillenburg's legacy. That would have been the ideal way to include Sweet Victory in this halftime show. On the other hand though, and it seems people were expecting this to happen, they could have had Maroon 5 perform Sweet Victory themselves, which is a completely different story in comparison. Now, I don't know how we didn't think this back in 2019, but thinking about it now in 2025, the idea of Adam Levine of all people singing Sweet Victory, that is the stuff of nightmares right there, let me tell you. There is no way you would be able to convince me that the man who sang Girls Like You, one of the worst songs ever made, would be able to successfully sing Sweet Victory. If there was literally any other band that was headlining the 2019 Super Bowl, then this would be fine. But no. It's Maroon 5. Now, I'm sure that the other members of Maroon 5, and yes, there are other members besides Adam Levine, if you can believe it, I'm sure musically they could do the song justice. But part of what makes Sweet Victory so good, part of what makes this scene so powerful, are the vocals of Sweet Victory. And I'm sorry, but I just cannot imagine the rather wimpy voice that Adam Levine has doing this song justice. Pause this video right now, go and listen to Payphone, come back to this video, and tell me with a straight face that the man who sang that song could somehow be able to successfully sing this song. Yeah, there is no way Adam Levine would be able to pull this off successfully. A lot of people were angry with what we got, and I have to remind y'all, the backlash to this was justified to an extent. I'm not defending this or anything like that. I'm just saying, it could have been so much worse than what we ended up getting. There is a far better way that this could have turned out, but there's also a significantly worse way this could have turned out. And I'm sorry, but I would rather have no sweet victory at all over a badly butchered sweet victory. I feel like that would have been far more disrespectful to Stephen Hillenburg's legacy than what we ended up getting. I'm sorry. And again, this wouldn't be a problem if there was literally any other band at this halftime show instead of Maroon 5. Even other notoriously hated bands like Nickelback or Imagine Dragons, I could see them doing a considerably better version of Sweet Victory than this hypothetical Maroon 5 version. As crazy as it may seem, I could unironically see Nickelback doing Sweet Victory justice. Or at the very least, I could see them doing it better than Maroon 5 ever could. On the other hand though, the backlash to the exclusion of Sweet Victory at this halftime show was justified to an extent. Obviously, yes, there was an ideal, better way they could have included Sweet Victory in this halftime show that didn't involve Adam Levine trying to sing and most likely butchering the song, but there were other reasons people were mad as well. Admittedly, I kind of feel bad for including this as a reason, given the very parasocial relationship that people have had with Stephen Hillenburg ever since he passed away. The whole debate of like, is Nickelodeon disrespecting Stephen Hillenburg and all that stuff, I really don't want to get into that. That's not what this video is supposed to be at all. I am simply here to tell the story of a controversy that has since been long forgotten about to time, but I still thought this was kind of an interesting thing to bring up, and you know, I feel like it kind of goes into Facebook conspiracy theory territory, but it's also not 100% implausible either. Now, as I mentioned before, there were a lot of memes that were made in response to the fact that no, we didn't get Sweet Victory at this halftime show. Several of these memes I saved all the way back in 2019. One of these memes that I ended up finding, one meme that I had saved at the time, caught my interest. Being angry that Sweet Victory wasn't played. Realizing that Stephen Hillenburg's death was used as bait to get millions of people to watch the halftime show. It's not unlikely to imagine people that tuned into the Super Bowl, people that tuned into the halftime show just to see Sweet Victory be performed. Obviously, not everyone that watched this Super Bowl wanted to see Sweet Victory and that was it. Obviously, you know, the Super Bowl is this big annual thing that happens every year. It would be preposterous for me to say that everyone that watched this specific Super Bowl watched it just to see Sweet Victory and that was it. But I want to imagine there were a good amount of people that watched this Super Bowl just for that alone. There are tons of people that watch the Super Bowl because they're genuinely interested in it, because they're massive football fans. There are people that just watch the Super Bowl for the halftime show. There are probably tons of people that tune in to the halftime show and then they turn it off as soon as it ends. And then for the case of this specific halftime show, there were probably people that tuned into it, as well as the Super Bowl in general. They tuned into it just to see Sweet Victory potentially be performed. Obviously, not everyone that watched this halftime show or the Super Bowl or anything like that, not all of them watched it just for Sweet Victory. But I want to imagine there were people that did watch this Super Bowl. They did watch this halftime show just to see Sweet Victory potentially be performed or have like the original Band Geeks clip play during it, anything of that sort, and they end up getting nothing. They get nothing at all. Remember, the original petition that started all of this garnered 1 million signatures. Obviously, I have no way of knowing which one of these people that signed the petition genuinely care about football and the Super Bowl and whatnot, and which one signed it just to have Stephen Hillenburg be honored, and they don't really care about the Super Bowl, they don't care about football, they don't care about sports in general. I have no way of knowing that at all. But I suppose it's not 100% out of the question to assume that, yeah, there were a good amount of people that watched this for no other reason other than to see a loving tribute to a man who contributed so much to so many people's childhoods, and they ended up getting nothing at all in return. The SpongeBob dancing gif that the Mercedes-Benz Stadium tweeted, it meant nothing. The 2-second SpongeBob clip in that Maroon 5 video, it meant nothing. It was all for this 5-second clip, and that was it. I feel like the backlash towards this wouldn't have been as strong if it was like they kept the cameo, they don't include Sweet Victory or anything like that. It's just a 10-second cameo, the introduction to sicko mode, and that's it. But they still include a dedicated to Stephen Hillenburg screen as well. You gotta remember, there are a lot of people that watch this Super Bowl. There were probably tons of people that watched this Super Bowl that had no idea about this petition. They had no idea about this whole campaign to have Sweet Victory be played at the Super Bowl. It could range from genuine football fans to Travis Scott fans to Maroon 5 fans, assuming they exist. It could be anyone like that. They watch this halftime show, they see this SpongeBob cameo, and they're gonna be confused. They're gonna be like, what the f is this? What does SpongeBob have to do with the Super Bowl? What does SpongeBob have to do with Maroon 5 or Travis Scott? I don't get it. I feel like adding a dedicated to Stephen Hillenburg screen, in addition to easing the backlash, would also add in a bit of context for people that they watch this and they have no idea about the petition to have Sweet Victory at the halftime show. Another thing that I want to bring up is, as we all know, Stephen Hillenburg passed away from ALS, and I think this halftime show could have been a great opportunity to raise awareness for ALS. Maybe they could have attached this to like an ALS charity or something like that. Anything to like, you know, make people more aware of ALS. It's like the creator of this beloved cartoon passed away from ALS, and they could have, you know, helped make more people aware of what ALS is and how to stop it. Have this be linked to like a charity of any kind for ALS. But no, there's just nothing like that at all. You get a 10-second SpongeBob clip and that's it. Adding a little screen that says, you know, dedicated to Stephen Hillenburg, something like that, that would have helped ease the backlash. And then having this be attached to like an ALS charity, you know, that would further ease the backlash, because then at least it's like, we don't get Sweet Victory, but it's still for a good cause. It still helps out people that are affected by ALS. It helps, you know, raise awareness of ALS, stuff like that. I'm not saying that the NFL maliciously baited people into watching this halftime show expecting a tribute to Stephen Hillenburg only to get nothing at all. Even though there was no Sweet Victory that was performed at all in the halftime show, I'm sure there was still good intentions behind this SpongeBob cameo. Now, what I'm about to say is going to completely blow your mind away. But yes, they did play Sweet Victory. Not at the halftime show though. The official Twitter account for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium posted a video of Sweet Victory, the original unedited clip from Band Geeks, being played on several jumbo screens at the top of the stadium. And it ends with a dedication, a memoriam to Stephen Hillenburg. Here's the thing though. This wasn't at the halftime show. This was before the game even started. And so there were probably a lot of people that had no idea about this at the time. I mean, the tweet did get a good amount of attention, garnering 19,000 retweets and 43,000 likes, but it was very clearly outnumbered by the large wave of negativity towards the fact that this wasn't at the halftime show. And you know what? Looking back on this whole thing in retrospect, I kinda see why this wasn't at the halftime show. I have no idea how the hell it works, but I want to imagine there's like a time limit of sorts for the halftime show. Even though there were tons of people that watched this halftime show for Sweet Victory, there were also people that watched this for Travis Scott, and as crazy as it may seem to believe, there are people that watch this halftime show for Maroon 5. More likely than not, there was no way for them to squeeze Sweet Victory into this halftime show, whether they played the original Band Geeks clip or they have Adam Levine perform the song himself. The most they could do was include this 10-second cameo, and that was it. Have SpongeBob be an introduction for Travis Scott. Have it be an introduction for Sicko Mode. When you look at it that way, then you kinda understand why there was no Sweet Victory at the halftime show. You could still be disappointed by it, but like, you know, there's a reason, I guess, as to why there was no Sweet Victory. I don't think there's that many people that knew that, yeah, Sweet Victory was played at the Super Bowl, except it was like before the Super Bowl even began. This one video showing the song being played at the start of the Super Bowl was not enough to stop the backlash. And it also didn't stop other sporting events from around the same time from taking advantage of the NFL not having Sweet Victory at its Super Bowl halftime show. On February 4th, 2019, only a day after the Super Bowl, a hockey game was held between the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wilds. Taking advantage of the massive controversy surrounding the lack of Sweet Victory at the Super Bowl halftime show the night before, the original Sweet Victory clip from Band Geeks was played at the game, with the Twitter account for the Dallas Stars tweeting about it. The Super Bowl halftime show that fans deserve. Now, the original video is unavailable, but there are re-uploads of it available on YouTube, as well as fan POVs of people watching it while they were at the game themselves. They played the original Sweet Victory clip, with the only modification being the characters wear green instead of red, as green is the color that the Dallas Stars wear. This video of the NHL actually playing Sweet Victory at its halftime show immediately went viral, with people claiming that this was exactly what we should have gotten at the Super Bowl halftime show. Several days later, on February 15th, 2019, the official YouTube channel for NASCAR uploaded a video. Daytona 500 Sweet Victory. The video is short, only 1 minute and 42 seconds long, and it consists of a montage of different Daytona 500 races with Sweet Victory playing in the background. Although this didn't go as viral as the NHL video, it's still something that I thought was worth bringing up as well. I remember when this whole thing was going down and I saw people were praising the NHL for playing Sweet Victory, but I never saw people really acknowledge this video all that much, which I wonder why that's the case. I find that weird. Well, I'm giving it the spotlight now. In general though, even looking past the whole Sweet Victory debacle, this halftime show was mostly poorly received, with many people calling it one of the worst, if not the worst halftime show in Super Bowl history. I don't feel like binge watching every single halftime show that we've ever gotten, so unfortunately, I cannot verify if this is genuinely the worst halftime show of all time, Sweet Victory notwithstanding. The funny thing is, the 10-second SpongeBob clip was actually considered a highlight among professional reviewers. And then if you looked at the general internet, you would see that they had the complete opposite opinion. They thought the lack of Sweet Victory, they thought this 10-second SpongeBob cameo was the worst part of the halftime show. And then, as time went on, people just kind of moved on from this whole thing. People were angry at this for like a week or two, and then we all just collectively moved on from it. By the end of 2019, nobody remembered this happening at all. When Super Bowl 54 happened in early 2020, I don't think there was anyone that watched it or its accompanying halftime show and they thought about last year's performance. They didn't think about Maroon 5 or Travis Scott or Sweet Victory or anything like that. And it ended up being like that with each subsequent Super Bowl and each subsequent halftime show. The further we moved away from Super Bowl 53, the more forgotten this whole incident became. Earlier this year, when Kendrick Lamar was singing about how Drake is a nonce in front of millions and millions of people, I don't think there was a single one of those millions of people that were thinking about this whole sweet victory thing from 6 years ago. I will be f***ing amazed if there was someone that had that on their mind when they watched Kendrick's halftime show this year. And so, you would think this is where our story comes to an end, but no. You would be wrong. Fast forward to 2023, nearly 5 years later, and it is announced that the then upcoming Super Bowl 58, in addition to airing on CBS, would also air on Nickelodeon, specifically a special alternate version of the Super Bowl, where you have SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy all narrating the game. And indeed, for this special alternate Nickelodeon version of Super Bowl 58, they finally did it. They played Sweet Victory at the beginning of the game. Half a decade later, and we finally got what we wanted all those years ago. What we got was a CGI remake of the original scene from Band Geeks, alongside different clips of the team members that would be participating in Super Bowl 58. And so, our journey comes to an end, for real this time. There are 2 lessons to be learned from this whole ordeal. Number 1, good things come to those who wait. Even if by the time we finally got Sweet Victory at a Super Bowl 5 years later, pretty much everyone had just completely moved on from the whole thing. I don't think there was anyone in 2024 that was still mad about this whole NFL not having Sweet Victory at the Super Bowl halftime show thing half a decade later. But whatever. We finally got it, and that's all that really matters. Number 2, be grateful for what you end up getting. It's okay to be disappointed at the fact that we didn't get Sweet Victory at the halftime show back in 2019. It's okay to be disappointed that all we got was a 10-second SpongeBob clip that led into Travis Scott's Sicko Mode. It's okay to be disappointed by all of that. But take into consideration that we could have gotten Adam Levine singing Sweet Victory. Do you really want to live in a universe where we got that instead? Honestly. I mean, yeah, it could have been unintentionally hilarious, but I'm not sure if anyone would want that at all, considering how much people wanted Sweet Victory to be at the halftime show, considering the reason why people wanted Sweet Victory to be at the halftime show. I'm not sure it would have been as funny. Again, and I cannot stress this enough, if there was literally any other band at the 2019 halftime show instead of Maroon 5, then that would make this a completely different story. Listen, I wish we lived in that timeline where Robert Plant or Freddie Mercury got to sing Sweet Victory, but unfortunately, we don't live in that timeline, and unfortunately, Adam Levine is not Robert Plant, nor is he Freddie Mercury. I've seen people say that Maroon 5 actually started off as a good band, like their first 2 albums are not that bad when compared to the crap they would put out in the 2010s, and you know, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that their early work is actually good, but I still doubt that they would be the right band to play Sweet Victory. It's okay to be disappointed with what we ended up getting, but just know it could have been so much worse. It also could have been so much better, but it's also important to note it could have been so much worse than what we ended up getting. On a side note, this has nothing to do with the rest of this video, but I want to bring it up anyways because I don't know where else I'll ever bring it up. I don't know when else I will ever talk about Maroon 5, so you know what? I'm going to talk about it right here in this video right now. Did you know that Maroon 5 is actually a much older band than you think? Maroon 5 started off in the 90s 90s as a band called Kara's Flowers, and they only put out 2 albums and that's it. I mainly want to focus on the first album that they put out called We Like Digging in 1995. I believe this was like a demo album that they released while the band members were in high school, and it's obviously not a commercial mainstream album or anything like that. It wasn't like released for retail or anything like that. It is extremely obscure, but you could very easily find it online, and I kid you not, it is a fucking honest to God Maroon 5 grunge album. You have songs that sound like they should be sung by Kurt Cobain or Lane Staley or Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder, and instead they're being sung by Adam goddamn Levine. And it is one of the most surreal things I've ever heard in my entire life. But it's also probably the best thing Maroon 5 ever made. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was funny, okay? I wanted to make this video because I randomly remembered one day this whole ordeal, and I thought, you know what, this would make for a great video. I don't think anyone's ever made a video on this topic, so you know what, I might as well be the one to do it. I'm sure there are people that are watching this video that had no idea any of this happened, but yes indeed, it did happen, and now you know that it happened. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see y'all next time. Adios.